for a Toastmasters meeting.
I know.
Although to me,
I
that
just
sounds
really love y'all.
that sounds better than the Cascade
Really
Club
love
down in
y'all.
Yakima that meets at 6 a.m. I'd rather stay up till 1 than get up at 5 to go to a 6 a.m. meeting.
Word. Although my
Yeah.
club in Nashville was at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
Whoa.
Ooh.
But I would rather stay up. I'm the same way. I'm more of a night owl anyways. Welcome, members of the Speakeasy and the Toasters. Welcome all the way from England. And Rob, would you like to give us the pledge?
I would be honored, Madam President, if everyone would please mute themselves and focus on my screen and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Sergeant at Arms. Tonight, I feel like I am sitting on the edge of my chair because Joyce always cracks me up no matter what she does. But now she's the Toastmaster extraordinaire for today. So I am looking forward to a night of fun. Joyce, take it away.
I will do that thing. Be prepared to be disappointed like all of my ex-boyfriends. Yay! The theme tonight is the new normal. I believe that you are as normal as the company you keep. I apologize in advance for raising or lowering the bar. It really depends on what you think of me. But I usually turn a room weird. It's a gift I have. As for the call of the joke of the day, I would like to tell a joke, and then I would like to have a show of hands on who would like to tell the second joke. It's a really cheesy joke, so I think you'll like it. Don't worry, it's clean. What did the Pacific Ocean say to the Atlantic Ocean? Nothing, it just waved. As a show of hands, who would like to do the second joke of the night? Cricket, cricket, cricket. Okay, it's all right. It gets a little salty after the ocean joke.
Sorry, I said something. I have a real short one, but I was on mute, so I didn't get through.
Okay, Dean, go for it.
Well, a friend of mine was going to come over and tell me a joke about Vladimir Putin, but he fell out a window.
I love it. Everyone showed up today. There are no program changes that I know of. Feel free to holler if there is one. And I would like to take a look around our handy dandy little screen. I see no brave souls have joined us guest-wise tonight. It's just us locals. And now I'm going to introduce our favorite general evaluator to explain the purpose of evaluating meeting and introduce the A team of the evaluation. Ron, take it away.
Thank you, Joyce. As you mentioned, and thank you very much, I am here as a general evaluator. Purpose of evaluating these ongoing weekly meetings is to make sure that we can do our best to continue to improve. To do that, we do have our A team, select individuals to help with their part of the process. The first I'd like to call in is the evaluator for the first speech, and that'd be Rob. Rob, tell us what you'll be doing, please.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. This evening, I will be evaluating our first speech tonight, given by our own president, Jackie Graybill. Jackie is working on level 4 of her presentation mastery pathway. This particular speech is an elective, in the level 4 in that particular pathway. It's called Create a Podcast, which I really didn't know what a podcast is. So I am actually looking forward to hearing this. Her speech is going to be a 2 to 3 minute introduction, and then it'll be 5 to 10 minutes as her main presentation. And I will give her some feedback after her speech this evening and report back to the general group. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mr. Tidd. Appreciate that. Next up is Dean, who will be the speech evaluator for speech number 2. Dean, want to tell us what you'll be doing, please?
Sure. I'll be evaluating Lloyd Smith's speech. He's on a level 2 project, Introduction to Toastmaster Mentoring. The purpose of the project is for the member to clearly define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring. The purpose of this speech is for the member to share some aspect of a previous experience as a protege. However, Lloyd has given the speech twice before as a protege, so he wants to do something different and will be speaking from the viewpoint of a mentor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. Rob and Dean did an excellent job describing those. I look forward to hearing both of those speeches. Next up is our timer, and I think there was a slight change to the program in that Pat and Christina swapped roles. So Christina, as a timer, tell us what you'll be doing tonight, please.
Thank you, Ron. Tonight I'll be timing the prepared speeches as well as table topics and the evaluations. Jackie, I need to ask you, how would you like this to be timed?
That is a great question. I anticipate being around 3 minutes, the full 3 minutes for my pre-speech. It said that I could use 5 to 7 minutes if I needed, but I'm just going to go ahead and go with the 2 to 3. So if you would do green at 2, yellow at 2:30, and red at 3, that would be fantastic. And I have my segment of the podcast timed out to just under 10 minutes. But if you want to give me I'll be sharing the screen. I don't know if I can necessarily see you, but a green at 9, yellow at 9:30, and a red at 10, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
All right, those will be the times then. 2, 2.5, and 3. 9, 9.5, and 10. Lloyd, is your speech 5 to 7?
Yes, it is.
Lloyd's will be then 5, 6, and 7. Table topics are a minute and a half, and 2. Evaluations, now I will show you what I will be holding up. This will be for the first marker with evaluations, that's 2. Yellow for 2.5, and red 3.
Jackie and Lloyd, when you share the screen, tell us if you can see us or not see us, and we will whistle at the appropriate times.
Yeah, I'm not going to be sharing the screen.
Right.
And also you can pin Christina and Eric if you need to, and then they'll be on there. So.
Oh, okay.
I will report at the end. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Next up is Pat. Pat will be our grammarian, which I heard Pat say is her absolute favorite role of these Toastmasters meetings. Pat, you can tell us what you'll be doing, please.
Well, I just love it. But before I share with you what I'm going to be doing, Christina needs to give me the word of the day.
The word of the day, because of our theme, the new normal, the word of the day is relevance. The quality or state of being closely connected or appropriate.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
Right, and in my role as, as grammarian, I will be watching for malapropisms, misuse of the English language, relevance of the vocabulary to the topic, and overall being the resident nitpicker for the evening. Thank you.
That nitpicker, that made me chuckle. Last but not least is our awe counter, Mary. Mary, you want to describe to us what you'll be doing tonight, please?
Sure will, Ron. I am the awe counter tonight. I will be keeping track of filler words and filler sounds. And if we are aware of our filler words, then we will be more succinct in our speaking and we'll keep our words relevant to the topic. I will be writing everything down on this paper and I will report back at the end of the meeting.
Thank you much, Mary. And for the rest of you that aren't part of the evaluation team, that concludes the team members and their roles. Of course, at the end, I will evaluate the meeting as a whole. So now we'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Joyce.
Thank you, Ron. I am going to do the introduction for Jackie's speech. Interested in podcasts? Jackie is starting one. Her chosen elective for level 4 of the presentation mastery pathway is create a podcast. Here's Jackie with Abused, stories of hope, transformation, rediscovery, and a path back to the light. Take it away, Jackie.
I ran across a quote that seems very relevant in many ways. It's by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it says, "Fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you." The thing that I care about is helping women escape abusive relationships. And I realized that a podcast would be a great way to get others to join me in my passion for those women. So that's why I picked this elective, create a podcast. Now, for those of you wondering what a podcast is, it's something that is mostly auditory, although video podcasts are gaining popularity, but mine will be auditory. And it's something that you can listen to while you're in the car or doing the dishes or whatever you're doing. And it's an episode that gets released usually every week or every day or whatever you decide. Mine is called Abused, Stories of Hope, Transformation, Rediscovery, and Path Back to the Light. And in my podcast, I'm going to be interviewing survivors of abuse and talking to them about how they made it out the other side. One of the core pieces of content that I want to go over with each of them involves the acronym HEAL, H-E-A-L, but in reverse. Talking to them, L, about when they decided to leave, A, for acceptance, when they accepted that their abuser was never going to change, E, for their environment, what environment they surrounded themselves with that made their transition and their escape from the abuser successful, and H, for habits that they put into place that led to their recovery. I'm going to be sharing with you a clip of an interview that I recorded that I'll be releasing for my podcast with a gal named Vanessa L. Wild. She escaped the Hare Krishna movement as a child, and she has an incredible story, but she's also a speaker and an improv coach. And I picked this particular clip because I felt you would get a lot of value out of it. I'm going to share my screen now and take you to that particular clip, which I have in GarageBand. And here we go.
I have learned this year that yes and is a huge tenet of improv. How would you describe yes and how can people take that idea of yes and apply it to their trauma, to their hard situation, to their COVID is making me lose my mind? and use it to expand so we're not so contracted and in fear.
Yes and is one of my favorite principles of improv because it has such a rich and deep meaning. So yes and is the idea that you accept what your scene partner is giving you. If you think of COVID as a scene partner and you accept that COVID is here and you say yes to it, now you can work within that relationship. If you say no to it, which is the equivalent of resistance, when we resist something, right, that's coming at us and it ain't stopping, I always say, imagine trying to hold back a tsunami or a big, we'll just say a less destructive thing, a big wave. You try to hold back that big wave, you are screwed. That wave is going to break you, and your denial or resistance not going to help you. But if you can duck under that wave, that's the principle of yes-anding. You're saying yes to the wave, and I'm going to go here. And you're going to just be in that moment, just as it is, without fighting it. The beauty of yes and is that I like to think of it, not only in improv, they say it's the principle of agreeing and adding on to. I feel like yes and is the ultimate statement of acceptance. This wave is coming and I am going to do this to survive. You make a choice about what you're going to do with it. COVID is here, yes, and I am going to pivot my business. I'm going to change my relationship. I'm going to take time to be better at self-care. Whatever it is. And same with the trauma. The yes and mentality, that principle allows you to say, yes, I was in a Hare Krishna ashram. Yes, I was in an abusive relationship. And this is how I see it. This is what I can do. This is what I'm going to go with it. Instead of resisting or denying or avoiding it, I'm just going to let it wash over and I'm going to deal with this shit. Because otherwise it breaks you.
Yeah.
And that's that power of yes-anding, is it keeps you connected to your life and that forward movement of your life, rather than the resistance and avoidance, but will shut it down, disconnect you. And ultimately, if you can't go with the flow, you break. And that's just the way it is.
So you're keeping yourself in momentum and growth.
Yes. That's perfect. Yes, and keeps you in momentum.
So it seems like a principle that is great in macro and also in micro.
Yes, it does.
So you can have your business in COVID, but how would you use that on a day-to-day basis? Like, say you had an experience today and it just sucked. How would you use that yes and principle in your brain, in your conversation with yourself, to keep in momentum and growth and to keep yourself from getting stuck in that?
That's a great example. So my improv business is an in-person business. There's nothing like sharing, a space with people who you're doing improv with. When that business basically went away because of COVID, my first thought was, yes, and let me try this online. So I tried it online. I've had zero resistance to COVID. Whatever happens because of it, I'm like, yes, and this is what we're going to do now. It's learning. It's really being adaptable. You have to be able to be adaptable to survive. So I took my improv business online. I did that for several weeks and decided that that wasn't what I wanted to do. Now, if I was in resistance to this, I would never have tried the virtual classes. I would have maybe been regretful, like maybe I should have tried that. But instead, I yes-anded the situation. I got to continue the experience and then make a more logical and intentional choice, not a reactive choice, right? I responded to the situation versus just was like, it's screwed up my life and my business and it's over. That would be reacting.
Right.
Where I said yes and I tried something new, and then I got to choose that I didn't like doing that. So I have the power and I feel really good about my choice.
Yeah. So I love that, by the way. So how would you encourage someone who's in an abusive relationship or who's in a organization that is very oppressive to them? How would you encourage them to use yes and to help them where they're at right now?
I think the first step is to not be hard on yourself, about the decision you made to be in that relationship or to stay in that oppressive situation. That the first key is to really like learn how to yes and yourself. The second part of that is yes anding the decision you made at the beginning, but now yes anding the glimmer of hope and of freedom that you are reconnecting with.
Mm.
And the second you find that glimmer of hope and you reconnect with freedom in yourself, you can break free. Because here's what I believe. Oppression cannot live where freedom rises. There is no chance. The second you remember that you're free, oppression will start to dissipate. You become empowered and strong and more confident. You just have to really kind of hold on to that sense of freedom, right?
Yes.
And then that will carry you through. So it's yes anding. Yes, I made this decision. Yes, I'm here now. I'm redeciding. Yes, and is a bridge, right, between you and what's next. It's another way to look at that. And so if you can do that all throughout that extraction process from that oppressive situation, you'll find resources and people and moments that lead the way for you to get out of that. But I think the most important thing is yes anding yourself, you know.
In your self-talk.
Oh,
How you
100%.
approach everything, because change is the only thing that is certain, right?
Change is the only thing that is certain, and yes and creates that movement that you need to get through that experience. If I resisted everything that was happening to me in my life right now, I would be on the floor. And I have to tell you, I have been in a little bit of a funk lately. And my dog was diagnosed with congestive heart failure yesterday morning. If I were resisting that, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed. I'd be crying for 3 days, which is fine. It's grief is grief. I'm still in an emotional state. But my choice in that moment was, okay, let's just deal with this. I'm going to yes and the doctor. I'm going to yes and his process, what he's going through. And I'm going to do whatever I can to make this as gentle, safe, and easy for him and for myself. And the second I made that choice, I felt at peace with whatever I needed to do to take care of him.
That's beautiful. It's like it took all of the emotional charge out of it because you weren't getting ready to break. You were bending with.
And that's the other power of yes and. When you can say yes and, you can forgive the situation. You can even forgive the people that hurt you. When you yes and, it opens, because it's that acceptance piece, it opens the door for you to actually see the other person as separate from you, a scene partner, and be able to see what this character is about, be able to see what they're bringing to the table. You can forgive it, you can let it go, you can move on.
You just said, forgive the situation. I've never heard that phrase before. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I don't think anybody's intentionally terrible. Some people are. But for the most part, most people are not intentionally cruel. They're not sitting around like, how many ways can I fuck with people? We end up in these, if we think of life as a play or a stage, right, of production, everybody's got as a character, and we're all coming to the stage and we're playing out all these scenes, and each character has a different relationship with the other characters. And if we can look at our lives like that and recognize that no one's coming to the table with malintent most of the time, you can look at the situation from a little bit more of an objective perspective, and you can forgive that experience. I had one teacher who would,
There we go. All right. There we go. Done. It's kind of weird to just end it like that. I went a couple seconds over what I meant to, but that is an experience with my podcast. Thank you. Abrupt ending. Ta-dum. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
So Joyce, I think you want to put up a minute.
Yes, I
For-
do. Christina, would you kindly put on a timer for a minute for us, please? Thank you, Rob. I was just awestruck by the podcast.
That's a minute.
Thank you, Christina. Mentoring can be a tricky situation for the mentor and the mentee. That's particularly true when the two people are technically equal, but actually not. That's the situation Lloyd Smith will be discussing this evening in his speech for Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring, which is a required project for level 2 of his team collaboration path. The project calls for a speech about a time when Lloyd was a protege of a mentor. However, since this project is required in level 2 of every path, he's done it twice previously. For tonight's speech, he's flipping the project around and talking about a time that he was a mentor for a protege. Lloyd Smith, and less is more.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. This is an interesting little project, and that's a good thing because all of you will be doing it. It's a required project on level 2 of all of the paths. It's called Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring, but the assignment it doesn't say that. It just says to pick a time in your life when you were a protege. As Joyce said in the introduction, I've done this twice before for 2 other paths, and I decided tonight that the thing to do would be to make it a reverse of that situation. In other words, a time when I was a mentor, not a protege. And the situation that popped into my mind was a really unusual thing that Eastmont School District did back in the early 1980s. And that is that they assigned all new teachers to more senior teachers in a mentor-mentee relationship. I was assigned a brand new math teacher, a guy named Scott. And Scott, according to the principal, had some serious trouble with classroom management and creating boundaries with students. Now, he was really good at math. He knew his stuff. He was a graduate of the University of Washington with an actual math degree. And then he had picked up his teaching credential later. But he had boundary issues. What that means is that he yielded to the thing that many new teachers yield to, and that is the temptation to become friends with the kids as opposed to friendly with the kids. And he also had trouble with classroom rules. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird, classroom rules. Why would that be an issue? So I met with him, and that's where I learned, kind of in a practical sense, I guess you'd say, that the Toastmasters mentoring thing is mentoring in general. The theory is that a mentor needs to have personal experiences that the mentee can benefit from. The mentor should have wisdom, should have an informed perspective, should know successful strategies for dealing with whatever the issues is that the mentee has, should show unconditional support, and should have presence, that sense of expertise. Since that guy was unavailable, I became the mentor instead. The protege, on the other hand, also has duties. And I think this is where mentor-mentee relationships break down. The protege sometimes gets the sense that there's a service being provided when he or she should have the sense that it's a two-part process, or a process that has two people who have to perform duties. Proteges, according to Toastmasters in the project, need to be willing to seek change and to improve. They need to be willing to look for guidance. They need to be adaptable. They need to be open to honest feedback and not defensive. And they need to be accountable for their own actions. That's where the mentor-mentee relationship that I had with Scott failed. The big problem was that he was unwilling to change or adapt. He knew a lot about math, I mean a lot, but he didn't know how to deal with teenage kids. And that sadly is something that happens a lot in the education world. People end up as teachers without realizing that they're not really cut out for the job. They don't, and sometimes they don't even like the job or don't even like the kids. That's a big issue. He was really a fish out of water. And what I mean by that is he just seemed like an odd guy. And it was hard for me to put my finger on it until one day during one of our after-school discussions, he blurted out that he was gay. Well, I didn't know that until that point. It turned out nobody else knew it either. And I told him two things were really important. Now, you have to understand this was in 1982-83 school year. Those of you who are old enough remember that right at that time was when the AIDS epidemic was starting. And it was considered to be a gay disease spread by gay people. And I told Scott, you better make sure you never whisper a word about being gay to anybody around here or you are done for. I mean, this is not the kind of community at that time that would have accepted that. The other thing was that he had told the kids for some reason that his childhood nickname was Scotty. And so all of the kids called him Scotty, and they wouldn't call him Mr. Hardy, which he should have done. He couldn't undo that. Once you squeeze that toothpaste out of the tube and create that personal connection, you're done for, is what it amounts to. Our mentor-mentee relationship went on for quite a while. He couldn't understand the idea that his classroom rules didn't work. He had a list of 72 rules that he had posted in his classroom. And I told him, you really need like one rule, you know, show up on time, pay attention, don't bring negative attention to yourself. And he couldn't see that. And so every day in class became a gigantic hassle over whether or not one of the 72 rules had been broken in some fashion. And he ended up exhausted and angry every day. And that's no way to go to work. Finally, one day, I said to him, can you picture yourself doing this job for 30 years? Because you're going to have to if you're going to make it to retirement. And he said, no, I can't. So I said, you should quit. And he did. He resigned at the end of the school year, went back to the UW to go to grad school, earned a PhD in statistics of all things. And that's wading in that deep water, trust me on that. And he's now a professor at Texas A&M. And he's apparently pretty happy. I get a Christmas card from him every year. The point of all of this is that unless the mentor and the mentee or protege are equally willing to work together, it's just plain not going to work. Madam Toastmaster.
That was good. Not a single bad speech tonight. I'm going to introduce. Now, actually, you know what? We're going to do 1 minute. Thank you, Rob. He has my back. Christina, would you do a minute on the timer for us? Thank you so much. I just get so excited.
Okay, look out. Look out.
That's a minute.
Thank you. Now we can go to my favorite part of the meeting, table topics. Let's see who is the master of topics tonight. Eric Stepper. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Table topics is a time in our meeting when we can practice talking extemporaneously, probably a more natural part of our day than giving speeches. We want to be able to gather our thoughts and put them together in a succinct way. So don't be afraid to take your time. Silence is your friend. In table topics, you can make something up. You can follow up a question of somebody else's, but we are all veterans, and I encourage you to try and answer the question that is given to you. Table topics, you try and involve people without roles and then people of lesser roles so that everybody has a chance to talk. The word of the day is relevance, and work that in. The topic of the day is the new normal, question mark. What has COVID changed in your routines that you're going to keep doing? Christina and I cleaned out some bookshelves, and I think I want to keep cleaning things out. What has COVID changed in your routines that you are going to keep doing? Vicki.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. COVID really didn't change much in my life. Yes, I'm not able to see people in person and travel. However, in my day-to-day life, a lot of things did not change drastically. And that was okay. But I don't want it to go to a normal again or a new normal. What I want is something better. And I am trying to find the good in what has happened. And at this point, things are coming to me that I never thought would be happening. I've become more in a training position. I've been learning how to use the Zoom platform. And it is one that has enabled me to be with people all across the world. And our Toastmaster conference was virtual. And it's just one of those things that is now going to be a part of our lives. And I guess if that is the new normal of having the virtual platform, that is one thing that has been incorporated in my life during COVID that's going to hang around. Mr. Table Topics Master.
Good job, Vicki. These questions are designed for you to expound. They aren't just naturally answerable. So you did a great job. Are you eating out? Why or why not? Inside or outside? Are you eating out? Why or why not? Inside or outside? Christina.
We are eating out, primarily outside. One of the things that I found most tragic about the recent smoke situation was the impact it had on restaurants who have put all kinds of time and money into creating an outside eating environment. The smoke robbed them of that, on top of the COVID situation where they're limited to the number of people inside. I was thrilled when the air cleared. Actually, for all of last week, we were on the Oregon coast. So we were able to continue our pattern of visiting local restaurants, eating outside. We find all of the wait staff to be respectful, to be wearing the masks, and the restaurants to be up to speed on all the requirements. We have not felt uncomfortable at all. in patronizing restaurants. I encourage everyone, if you get the opportunity, to eat out at one of the local restaurants that has created outdoor space, or at the very least, pick up takeout and support our local restaurants so they can survive all of the excitement that we've had. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Rob, for picking up the timing. Excellent job. Do you think we should wear masks, or is it overhyped? Do you think we should wear masks, or is it overhyped? Mary?
Oh, absolutely. We should be wearing masks. I don't think it's overhyped at all. I do take a walk every morning out on the loop trail. There, I'm grateful that it's not necessary to wear a mask. I like breathing the fresh air. It makes me feel good. I take lots of deep lungfuls, if that's a word, of good Columbia River air, and I enjoy that very much. I appreciate how many people, which is pretty darn close to 100% of people who are wearing masks when they're at the grocery store, even on the trails, some people choose to, even in their cars. I've seen people masked up and they're all by themselves, probably just convenient for them. I think it's a good habit to get into. I used to work at Confluence Health. Occasionally we would have somebody in the facility wearing a mask, and they looked unusual and a little frightening to a lot of people. They must have a terribly contagious disease, or they are very sick and protecting themselves against everyone else. I think that stigma now is gone. I don't think we'll think that a person wearing a mask is that unusual. They're just being careful, and they have earned our respect. So hooray for masks. Let's keep wearing them as long as this COVID-19 is in our midst and we are susceptible to it. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mary. What has become something new that you're doing as an inside activity because of COVID and the smoke, or has it not impacted you at all? We have found that we are watching cooking documentary shows more than we have before. What has become something new that you are doing as an inside activity, or has it not affected you at all? Pat?
There's a song that says something like, something old is new again. And actually, my new thing is I started a needlepoint advent calendar for my granddaughter 6 years ago. If anybody here has needlepointed, you know it's very tedious. You've got these little teeny squares to get the thread through. And I just promised myself that I was going to finish the damn thing by the 1st of December this year. And so my old project that I've just been doing snippets of over a 6-year period, I make myself work on it a half an hour to an hour every day, and I think I'm going to make it. So what I've done is taken something old and made it new again. My needlepoint advent calendar will now probably go to my great-grandson, who's going to be 7. But my granddaughter loves advent calendars. So what I've been doing in the years in between is buying her those commercially made ones that have chocolate candy inside. This will not have chocolate candy. Done.
Thank you, Pat. You guys handled all of these very well. Very, very awesome. I'm going to hand it back over to our Toastmaster, Joyce.
I had to unmute myself. That was so much fun. I was hoping you'd pick me for one, but I understand. I have a speaking role. I'm going to say a few things about the meeting, the things that are on my mind. I love it when meetings like this come together. It's seamless. And these are the nights that I enjoy the meetings the most. I would like to reintroduce our general evaluator, Ron.
Okay, thank you very much, Joyce. I want to go ahead and get right into this, so I will ask Rob to come up and share with us his evaluation of Jackie's speech. To you, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. First, Jackie, I want to apologize. This is the first time I've done an evaluation, and I didn't stress the purpose of your speech. I know that it was listed on the evaluation form, and I'm now getting the impression that I probably should have done a better job in kind of setting the stage for you in your speech. So I apologize. I know my role is not really to analyze the content of your speech, which I thought was very relevant. Abuse happens way too often in this world, and anytime that we can bring it out of the closet and talk about it, I think that is important. And I also know that this is very relevant to the area of study that brought you to England in the first place. So I know this is dear to your heart, and it showed. As for the speech presentation, I thought it was well done. Your gestures are always fantastic. I like the fact that you stand up, which I think we're, as a group, learning to do and do it better. And I enjoyed the way that when you did the Q&A for the podcast, you were so at ease. It flowed very smoothly. And I know what's going to happen in the future. You, as an international woman of mystery, are going to have a podcast that everyone around the world is going to want to listen to. And I'm looking forward to that. The only thing that was a little distracting for me was the GarageBand. I found that I couldn't really focus on the screen. I had to look away and listen to what you and the person you were interviewing were talking about. That would probably be the only thing that you might want to consider changing up. Other than that, you did a fantastic job. You met the goals of this exercise. I can't wait to hear your podcast going forward. Job well done. Thank you, Jackie. And that's my report.
Well done, Rob. Thank you very much. Next up is Dean. Dean, will you come on and share with us your thoughts on Lloyd's speech, please?
Certainly. I really appreciated Lloyd's speech. I'm always interested in mentoring, and in fact have a couple of situations where the participants aren't really wanting to do anything. They want me to fix it for them, which I'm not going to do. So this was a very timely speech for me, which I enjoyed. It had an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. The introduction, Lloyd talked about setting up the relationship, the situation with the mentor and the mentee. You did have a little bit of extra material in your introduction that you probably could have cut out, and that was the stuff talking about the project, because we already covered that in the Toastmasters introduction, as well as my little dissertation up front. So you could cut that out and shorten it up a little bit. The body of the speech, you talked about various aspects of the relationship, why it didn't work, which, by the way, I thought was a very brave thing to talk about. Often we learn much more from our failures than we learn from our successes. So I very much appreciated that. Before I listened to your speech, one of the things I wanted to make sure I heard were some stories and anecdotes, and I did hear those, and they supported your story. I particularly was amazed at the 72 rules list thereof. And as you said, one or two would have been sufficient. I also thought that you gave when you talked about how the kids called him Scotty, that was a good indication that he'd really lost control of his class. Finally, you concluded by reiterating your main point and that you gave him a real key piece of advice by asking him the question, can you see yourself doing this for the rest of your life? You should be very proud of that because that was a life-changing event. That was a question he needed to answer. So that was outstanding, a really good example of mentoring. So I found the speech very helpful. I think everyone was interested. It was very relevant to all of us, and I certainly appreciated it. Good job.
Excellent evaluation, Dean. Thank you very much. Next up is our timer, Christina. Christina, you want to give your timer's report, please?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Our two speeches tonight, Jackie's introduction to her podcast, 2 minutes, 51 seconds. The podcast itself and her synopsis at the end, 10 minutes, 13 seconds. The podcast was within time, then you added on a little bit more at the end, which pushed it a bit over, but it was necessary. You couldn't just stop at the end of the podcast and go back to England. Leave us alone here. Wouldn't have been good. Lloyd's 6 minutes, 20 seconds. Rob's evaluation, 2 minutes, 28 seconds. Dean's evaluation, 2 minutes, 33 seconds. For table topics, Pat, 1 minute 17. Mary, 1 minute 38. Vicki, 1 minute 14. And I think I was, what, Rob, 1 minute 50-ish?
Minute 40.
Minute 40. Thank you. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Christina. Great job. Next up, Pat, in her favorite role as grammarian. Want to tell us what you heard tonight, Pat?
Well, after conferring with my assistant, Chloe, who you may have seen occasionally peeking in to give me an earful, I'll start with the nitty-picky stuff first. Jackie, the word is forget, not forget. That was the only malapropism I heard. Mary and Eric, the word succinct is not pronounced succinct, it's succinct. So that was the only mispronunciation I heard. The use of the word relevant, I used it once, Dean used it once, Rob used it twice, Jackie used it once, so it did get quite a bit of attention throughout. The best part was a number of people used rather colorful language. It all started with Joyce at the very beginning when she talked about having a cheesy joke. It kind of set us up for, you know, this was not going to be an all-star kind of thing and we could kind of hold our noses and laugh nonetheless. Jackie's use of HEAL to describe the components of counseling someone who was the subject of abuse really was a nice technique to use because it's easy to remember, and to put it in reverse really causes one to think about it. Lloyd used a lot of interesting language. He did a really good job of distinguishing between teacher as friend and teacher friendly. And then he used two liquid terms, one being a fish out of water, and the other was wading in deep water. And that's all that Chloe and I have to say. They were really neat uses of language tonight. I think that was the best part of the whole thing. And also nice, frequent use of the word of the evening. Good job.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that. And please let Chloe know that we all appreciate her contribution as well. Last but not least member of our evaluation team is Mary. Mary, will you come up and give us your all-counter report, please?
Thanks, Ron. Be happy to. We had 2 people with 0, and that's those 2 on the couch there, Eric and Christina. Congratulations. I'm going to make this a succinct report. Thank you, Pat. Everyone else had something, and there were a lot of ands and some so's. But this was different because of the podcast. So, yes, I did not count anything from Vanessa. And I think I might have mentioned this to Jackie in my little 1-minute evaluation. But there were a lot of from you on the podcast. And think about those sounds that you make, because nobody can see you. It just sort of comes in. So we are reminded there's an interviewer, but maybe you could fill in with some words instead of That was interesting to have a podcast to evaluate, by the way. That's my report, Mr. Evaluator.
Quite the succinct report, Mary. Thank you very much. My evaluation as a whole, I thought this was a great meeting. Of all of the online Cascade, Speakeasy / Electric Toasters meetings that I've attended, I think this has the least number of members at 10. I could be mistaken, but I don't think that I am. But we had just a minor program change, flip-flopping Christina's and Pat's roles, but not a big deal. That went off just fine. 2 speeches, 2 excellent speeches. Thank you, Lloyd and Jackie. Well done. And I like both of the speech evaluations. Rob, and you had a self-evaluation of yourself, which I thought was appropriate to point out. Not that I really thought about it myself, but I thought it was pretty cool how you started off your evaluation that way. And Dean, you packed a lot of good, detailed information into your evaluation. Excellent introduction, body, conclusion. I don't know if there's anybody here, no offense to anyone else, that could have done a better evaluation. That was great. Everybody stayed relatively centered in their screens. I was the only one that was yawning. I was keeping an eye on Jackie because we're coming up on 2:30 in the morning. No red eye, no yawning, no nothing. And maybe that's why your screen goes black from time to time, is that you're just practicing that excellent Zoom meeting etiquette. We started on time. We're for the most part ending on time. Overall, excellent meeting. Thank you much, everybody. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
I enjoyed this meeting. Lloyd, do you have any words of wisdom to share with us tonight?
Yeah, I was really happy to see Jackie do this level 4 speech. Level 4 is a perfect illustration of the differences between pathways and the former educational program. Among other things, the projects include building a social media presence, creating a podcast, the one Jackie did, managing online meetings, managing projects successfully, public relations strategies, and writing a compelling blog. And there just was nothing like that in the traditional program, the legacy program. Most of these projects also have quite a bit more length to them than the regular 5 to 7 speeches we're used to, which is also a good thing. That's a better match to things that happen in the real world. And I think all of you will find as you get into the upper levels of the paths, there are some really interesting things to do in there, and a lot of variability too. A lot of things you do completely outside of Toastmasters, then come in and just report on how it went. So
That's good.
back to you.
I do want to find who is going to take the votes for the speaker of wonderful. Let's vote.
Okay, down.
And while we're voting, I'm going to bring it on over to El Presidente. Jackie.
Thank you, Joyce. You did an amazing, amazing job tonight. Thank you. Thank you for everyone being here. I'm happy to hear that the smoke has cleared, especially for my little puppy. I'm scared about him being outside, but I guess everybody else is getting that smoke too. Glad to hear it's clear. Anything anybody else wants to share? I know we're at time and doesn't look like Rob is quite ready yet.
Actually, I am, Madam President.
Okay. Fabulous.
The winner won with one more vote than the second place person. It was that close. Tonight's winner, Lloyd Smith. Congratulations, Lloyd.
Fantastic. All right. The only thing I want to mention is the district meeting on Wednesday night. I believe that's at 6, Lloyd, Vicky?
Correct. And we're having a keynote speaker, and those who aren't in a role where you vote can go on to the Facebook group page and be able to watch the meeting.
Fantastic. I will be there at 2 a.m. in the morning, and then I will be going back to sleep. Which is what I'm
Am
gonna
I in a position where I have to vote? I'm so sorry, Jackie.
No.
No? Okay.
The two votes are Jackie and me.
Sorry.
Well, I have to go because I'm having bangers and mash. So,
Bangers and mash,
yes.
enjoy.
Yes.
Have a bite for us.
Thanks, guys. See some of you on Wednesday/Thursday morning.
Okay. Hey, guys.
Bye.